Hello and welcome to another episode of Junior, a Senior and I. I am extremely happy to have today with me Stan and Thierry to talk about team efficiency. But first, let's meet them. Thierry, could you introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less, please?
All right. So I'm Thierry. I help organize. Well, I like to say I help teams adopt practices that will reduce stress and fatigue, and as a side effect, it increases quality, and they are able to deliver faster.
Cool, thank you very much. And what about you, Stan?
Well, that's hard to follow. Well, I'm Stan. I've been a co-founder and CTO for a couple of years at Drobotics, 8 years before, and essentially we built a team that I was lucky enough to be able to shape the way I intended to. So I tried a lot of different things I've been reading on the internet and exchanging with people like you, Pablo. We didn't have the chance to meet Thierry yet, so that was there. And yeah, essentially here I'm the one with empirical experience. Thierry, I believe, has more experiences in plural. But yeah, happy to be here, happy to exchange and to and hopefully to learn a lot of things. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Stan. So let's start with the first obvious question. How do we recognize an efficient team? Like, what are the markers of an efficient team? Whichever of you wants to take us away.
I can start with this one if you'd like. the in my experience, most of the time the efficient team was the one with the highest level of trust in between the members and within the organization as well. That's not really how I recognize it, but it's more like a requirement. If it's not there, I believe efficiency can't really happen, or at least not in the mid/long term. And most of the time, I've put a strong emphasis within the rest of the organization, because you have obviously the inner workings of the team and patterns and so on. But most of the time, as I was saying, the efficiency comes from the ability of the team to essentially adapt and react to the rest of the organization.
Yeah, I agree. Good, you mentioned trust. It's when trust is there, magic happens. It's lots of commonly adopted practices, not necessary.
Okay, let's dig into that. Which practices do you believe are not necessary anymore when there is trust?
Yeah, it's one that I'm battling lately. Is the whole code review and pull request model that exists, and that is like the most accepted and pervasive practice in the industry. Once there is trust, you actually don't need that. You don't need a process that thinks that people are stupid.
And is that universal? Because you can not think that people are stupid and still believe there is a difference in seniority or skill or between different people in an organization, right?
Yeah, true. But this can be fixed by true collaboration and real teams. So, as you said, before starting the session, well, from what I understood, you started with what we started calling software teaming, but what is most known as mob programming. Well, that's how you fix. That's what helps to level knowledge gaps between senior and juniors.
I am assuming that Stan, you have a reaction here because I saw you smiling a lot.
No, I'm mainly smiling at you, Pablo. Well, for the record, Pablo is a big fan of mob programming and has been trying to push it a lot. And if we dive into a bit more into Pablo's and I relationship, we used to work together And right before I left the company where he's still at, we tried mob programming because Pablo brought it to the table. And I believe he's making a strong comeback nowadays. So yeah, I'm smiling because that has been a topic we've been exchanging. My very small experience with mob programming is we tried it for a very specific feature, which was the context is there is a front end and a back end team. The two teams have different skill sets, and we tried mob programming right before I left for a feature that essentially was common to both, that has an impact on both, and something that was complex enough so nobody really had an answer. Even the the product person, which was at the time the CEO himself. And so the result for that was, in my opinion, great because it helped us, and that's something I think I'm going to bring back to the table later. It helped us in the product sense, and it helped us in the technical side as well, because of this kind of hive mind we had. So my understanding of it is, for certain features, it can work because that's what I experienced. I'm still waiting to see if it's something that works for everything, and I'm still struggling to see it through my own experiences because I've never experienced something quite so radical before. So I'm open to it, but I'm very curious as to how we work on a day-to-day basis with such a pattern.
Yeah, I get that. Well, so Woody Searle, the person that brought mob programming to the world, he likes to say it's all the bright minds together in one room. And that's the thing. It's software development, IT products. This is knowledge work. And you can't expect to come with the best solution if this is done in solo. If you can bring everyone's perspective around the table, magic happens again.
And that's something you've implemented a couple of times, Thierry?
Well, unfortunately, it's hard to implement. So currently,
it's a hard sell on existing teams.
It's a hard sell on existing teams. It's a less hard sell than pair programming, on the other hand. So it's easier to implement, because the problem with pair programming is a social problem. I don't want to work with this person, which is understandable, which is less present with software teaming because, you are all together. It's less like this intimate relation that you have to have. But I find it an easier sell, but it's a difficult sell in existing organizations where solo work is present. Well, it's a difficult sell to leadership because they have this focus on, but that's not very productive. Well,
if I grow the team, it's not to put them all in one place working on one thing.
I think I could spend the night discussing this very specific and narrow subject, and I'm happy to do so if you both want to.
I'm so happy that this came as the first topic. In like the first 5 minutes, it's just like, it's perfect.
Well, so I guess it's 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. I think it's 2 years ago. I had like my poster child case for selling mob programming. And it was given by Giovanni Asproni. He's London-based Italian. So during pandemic, he was the lead of a team that had to implement a solution for the UK. I think it was a system to allow British people to record that they couldn't work and that they could receive money. And so they did an estimation, and I think it was something like 6 months, but the Prime Minister announced it that it would be ready in 3 months. And there they were. So his decision was like, okay, the team was distributed within Europe with time zones time zone differences of 1 or 2 hours. And he said, like, yeah, up, everyone in a call, and we do mob programming. And they nailed it. So they delivered it on time with quality, and it was impressive. And he also said the team loved it. At a certain point, they had mobs running for 16 hours per day, but people were not 16 hours present. It was just people coming in, going. One has to get the child, someone else comes in, etc. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, I read an article, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, from Tim Ottinger describing swarming as like when a team gets too big to be on only one group. This phenomenon can happen where different groups are formed and the groups are fluid. Whereas, okay, we have these three tasks and you move from task to task depending on which expertise they need, etc. But that also felt interesting. A bit more abstract for me because I've never been in a huge team, or by the teams I've worked on were always like 5, 6 people max. But what you're describing does remind me of that, right? But last question in this, again, a very narrow topic, but how does that actually foster more efficiency in the team, right? Because we like the easy point of the management of, yeah, but we're less productive because we're working on less things. It's an easy point, but it's an easy point because it's easy to make. How is the fact that everyone is working on the same thing making the team more efficient?
From my very, very narrow experience on the topic, one of the success was not the code or even the feature, actually. It was the common knowledge, the tribe knowledge that developed, and the fact that at the end, everyone was omniscient about essentially how it worked, why it worked that way, and how it was supposed to work in the future. And this was like, I mean, you can't have this kind of success with classic, I would say, programming. So just like in a matter of 3 days or 4 days, I don't remember how much time we had it running. That's kind of magical to have this such a illustration of what you can have.
Indeed. So you don't have bottlenecks anymore. You don't have single point of failures anymore. It's this whole knowledge sharing. All skills becomes fluid. That's the thing. And additionally, you have more creativity because more people are around the table. And so you will probably come up with a better solution and with better fits to the needs of the users.
I see.
I think there is something to be said not about efficiency but resiliency as a success, because as you were saying, Thierry, like you don't have one person having the single knowledge of how it works. So yeah.
Oh. Thank you, and I'm gonna sadly close this parenthesis that began.
I know it's gonna cost you.
It's costing me a lot because it's a subject that is really in my present right now. But let's talk to the rest of the people that are not software teaming right now.
You do know there is a conference around this
Truly.
software teaming. Yeah. Woody Earl organizes.
Okay, I will ask you for the website of that conference.
This is like
add it on the show notes then.
This is like Christmas for him.
But anyways, if we talk to the I don't know 80-90% of developers out there that are working solo in teams that are a collection of individual units, what are the levers that either the individuals or of the team or the managers or the companies or whomever can use to make the teams more efficient? What can they use to make that collaboration better without going to the extreme of, okay, let's all work on the same thing at the same place at the same time?
A lot depends on leadership. I once helped a team that had a fantastic manager, like really like the one out of the books. So he didn't do micromanagement. He was just like, look, this is the mission of the team. Do whatever you want. I don't care, as long as it fits the mission. Now, a lot of people, because this was in an organization, it was where the culture was quite micromanagement. So half of the team had a really hard time with this way of managing, because they were expecting someone to tell them what to do, and he was like, no. Choose whatever you want, I don't care, as long as it fits the mission. We did incredible things, because, well, we were, all of a sudden, we could just implement all our crazy ideas. Everything we suggested, he was like, yes, go, 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 go.
Okay. And do you like how would you stand try to or which levers would you use, either that freedom and that clarity of mission, or something else that you would use to make a team more efficient towards a goal? And I'm using efficiency loosely here because it can mean producing more code in less time, as well as it can mean producing the right code in the right time, right?
Yeah, I'm happy that you made the last remark, because I was going to talk about vision clarity and the fact that I believe one of the lever is to align people, and is like not just people within the team, but once again within the organization. The moment you have the sales team cheering the engineering team, like it's kind of magical. The fact that we can have such an alignment within the product or something like this, most of the time magic happens, but it means that you have to have, in my opinion, and smaller experience on that part, you have to have looser boundaries in between teams and so on. Backend engineer should be able to ask questions and challenge a UI or even like a product take, I would say. And the moment this happens, the moment you let those people actually engage with one another, and maybe it's because I've worked with people who were interested or whatever, but at the very least, in my experience, it worked really well, and you had backend engineers knowing exactly what was going to happen next, front-end engineer knowing that we had some performance issues and they had to be mindful of that, and so on and so on. And so it really ripples down to the very last person that's gonna push the last line of code. And as a result, you have maybe not as much as when you do mob programming or or this pattern. You don't have such a cohesion around trouble knowledge, but at least you have alignment and people know what's going to happen. And that was not only mentally satisfying for everyone, because most of the time people don't just care about what they do, they care about what's around. But I was actually pretty efficient for the organization as well, in terms of the right code was shipped, and I believe the velocity was pretty good as well.
Yes, I fully agree with that. And I would add, engineers and understanding the business and being able to reason with the product manager, and even being in contact with end users or customers, really is really helpful.
What you're both saying is kind of scary, I believe, because that's not like if you go to a random company and start working tomorrow, chances are nothing that you're describing here is happening.
In a lot of companies, this is probably crazy, but this is really what makes the difference between beating the market or not.
And you can see that, sometimes you do read some stuff about, the engineers, they are on call for support for a day, a month, or a week, or whatever. You see those, and in those occurrences, I believe that's what's behind. And every company has, I mean, not every company, but you have more companies than I believe we can see that are actually implementing really small stuff like this. But on the other end, I kind of agree with you, Pablo, in the fact that I think it's most of the time I've seen it in action, it was led by a single person thinking it was a good idea and nobody saying no, essentially. And so this person just went with it. At least that's what happened in my case. I'm not the one that pushed it initially. It's actually one of the backend engineers, Sanjeev, the best of us. Sanjeev actually challenged me and was interested into knowing how things were working outside of his scope. And it just worked. It just worked beautifully. And as it worked so much that it was part of my recruiting process at the very end, I expected people to, have this kind of mentality. But it's, yeah, as most of the things, like if people in leadership position are not open to this kind of stuff, obviously it's going to be a hard sell, but sometimes it happens.
And I don't want to sound too challenging, because I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here because I'm on board to most of what you're saying. But how come it's not the norm if it's more efficient? Like, is everyone wrong? But essentially, that's what I'm asking as a question, right? Like, is the social wisdom wrong, or are we the ones that are crazy, right?
Sorry, I'm just gonna jump on this one because I need to re-say that what I'm sharing worked in my context, and it was a company of 30 people with an engineering plus product team of 15, and I was one of the co-founders. So essentially, like, luxury position to implement what I wanted, as long as I educated my co-founders. And so it's extremely, like, privileged position. Like, I didn't have to actually do the hard sell and this kind of stuff. And on the other end, well, I was lucky enough to have people who challenged me as well within the organization. So that worked really well, but I understand it's very specific.
I guess I could rework my question into being rather, why is it a hard sell? Like, if it's better, and once you experience it, you see that it's better, or you feel it's better, or however you want to describe it, how come it's a hard sell?
I wouldn't say. I'm the wrong person to ask, because I believe that engineers having business knowledge is efficient. And the reason for that is that, well, you don't need upfront analysis in that case. You can just make a roadmap with one-liners. Oh, we think this thing would be useful, and that, and this, and that. And they will figure out. You will pick it, and then they will figure out. This sounds scary in a lot of organizations.
Exactly.
But
I think it's easier.
engineers are really not stupid. They are most of the time intelligent people. They can figure things out.
But I think it's what you said. It must be scary from the outside because we have this kind of thing, I believe, where people from the outside, they always, like, I believe they are a bit afraid of not being able to understand the nitty-gritty part. And I guess one of the reaction is it's easier to work in silos. So it's easier for people from the outside, I believe, to say, okay, this is like product department, and this is the output of the product department, and it's going to be fed to the engineering department, and this is going to be the output of the engineering department, and so on and so on. And I think it's just easier to think about it in silos in bigger organization. But I don't know.
You spoke about silos and input output, and it's gonna lead me quite well to the next subject I wanted to treat. So I'm gonna jump on that opportunity. Inputs, outputs, silos, all those might create constraints and bottlenecks. how do you go about identifying where is the bottleneck? Because as I understand it, if you can optimize as much as you want everything around the bottleneck is still the one that's gonna mark your rhythm, right?
Exactly, yeah. So one of the great books around this is The Goal. So the goal is about theory of constraints, and the central premise of theory of constraints is that every system has one governing bottleneck, and optimizing anything outside of the bottleneck has no sense because, well, your system is going at the pace of the bottleneck. So the thing is to identify the bottleneck and then trying to remove the bottleneck. But we need to understand that a new bottleneck will arise. And then you need to work on that one. Oh yeah, the way of identifying the bottleneck, well, one thing is, well, either you look at if teams use something like a board, Kanban board or Scrum board or how they call it to follow work, just look at the column where most tickets are sitting, and there you have your bottleneck. Now you can do it more scientific, and this is then value stream mapping. So it's graphically showing how you are producing value and then trying to estimate how much time is spent in every step. That's another way of working, but just looking at the board gives you already a good sense of where the problem is.
And
It's something I've experienced a bit in my first company, and especially in the two next ones. So I'm at my third now, not mine this time. But so what I mean is, I arrived in existing teams, and I arrived in the position of leadership to those teams. And so what actually happened is I followed the frustrations. Frustrations, they always leave a trail of smaller frustrations, and you just have to it's easier said than done, but at least it's interesting. I mean, at least for me, to actually follow the frustration, maybe across the organization, maybe just within the team. And at my two previous companies, so the one I'm at and the one before, they led to very different things, but every time it led to something, and something that was actually meaningful to the organization. And yeah, the company I was with, Pablo, it was not hidden. It was like in plain sight. At my current company, it was a bit more hidden. And yeah, like it was kind of, playing Sherlock Holmes. And at the end of the day, once you have the bottleneck, as Thierry was saying, like you try your best to solve it and on to the next one. So that's kind of the game we play. But it's a funny one, at least.
I like this idea of frustration. I'll take that with me. Thank you.
I actually wanted to dig as well into that because I found it really interesting. How do you make that frustration bubble up? Because most people, when they are frustrated, or a lot of people, when they are frustrated, will keep them to themselves because they don't want to be seen as the negative person or the contrarian, etc., etc. How do you try to make people open up about those frustrations?
Sometimes it comes from just like, oh, this doesn't happen, or we don't deploy so often, or when we deploy, it's sometimes it doesn't sound like a frustration. It's like, yeah, when we deploy, I'm always a bit wary of what happens. Say, oh, why? Well, we don't deploy so much often, so it's a lot. Oh, why? and then you move. It's like the 5 whys, right? And at some point you find that, yeah, something's wrong, and it's been like this for ages, so nobody really questioned it. And along the way you start to see the frustrations. Sometimes they come right away to your face. That's what happened with my current company. They were like, I arrived and a lot of different people said, okay, this is frustrating, this is frustrating, this is frustrating, you need to fix it. Sure, that's, I was gonna say that's easier, but it might not be the case because it maybe it's not the biggest bottleneck you have to fix right now. But yeah, the company we worked together, Pablo, when I arrived, I was like, I played the 5 whys, why, and found the hidden poop. I don't remember where it comes from. Like, where's the poop? I think from How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, yeah.
TV show. Where's the poop, Robin? Yeah,
I
that's
think
it.
that's it. Okay, and you kind of glanced around the practice there, which basically you're not doing continuous deployment or you're never deploying why, which leads you to I'm doing continuous deployment because I can deploy at any time, right? Are there practices that always help a team to be more efficient? Are there things that it's like, okay, everyone should do this, no questions asked, no matter your situation, this should be a must? Or is there a bit of more nuance to that radical take I'm representing?
What's your joker, Thierry?
Well, it's the thing I'm most asked to help with. It's continuous. Yeah, it's continuous integration. It's true continuous integration. It's not even continuous delivery. It's just being able to integrate continuously. This is like having any time a view on the health of the code base and knowing like, well, this version is okay. I guess if we drop it in production, it will be okay. This should be your holy grail.
If you don't mind, Stan, before you give your take, I want to dig a bit more into continuous integration because it's something that I've been noticing with these talks I have in which very knowledgeable people will say something, for example, TDD or continuous integration, and it means something. There is a why to it, and people that have less experience, like myself, have only heard the term. What and why continuous integration, if you don't mind, Thierry? Like, what is it exactly, and why is it so important?
So it dates back to the early 90s. It's Ken Beck that introduced continuous integration. It dates from a period where integrating software was like took months, like literally. Teams were working in silos, and then they were all producing their little piece of the solution, and then all of this had to be integrated together, and then it took months to fix all the integration problems. And so Ken Beck worked together with Martin Fowler, a couple of other knowledgeable people at Chrysler, I think, and it was a small team. And it's also where this whole extreme programming came up. And they integrated continuously, like every day they integrated the code that everyone was producing. And so at any given moment in time, they knew this piece of software works. And so this piece of software can be released. That's the thing. And so they didn't have months of integration. And this also allowed them, this is also where this rhythm comes, like, yeah, every 2 weeks we can release software. That's from there that this comes.
Which is crazy because it feels like a non-radical idea now with the, or at least something that I'm seeing often is like 2 weeks to deploy something feels like a long time now, but at the time it must have been a revolutionary idea, right?
You would be surprised.
Yeah, you would be surprised about the 2 weeks, really.
That's something I've when I when I left Dropbox. That's something I realized. I thought it was common practice, and then I talked. I mean, left my bubble a bit, and I realized that yeah, actually, not everywhere. Like,
Fair enough. It's true that I've been in a world that's remained quite similar in size and in style of companies.
But what's interesting to me is those people at a car manufacturer like 30 years ago, they managed to do it better than, you know, some. I mean, they didn't have the tools and just the literature we have today. Like it's mind-boggling to me that they managed to have this kind of rhythm with, you know, technologies from 30 years ago. Because yeah, I don't know, like it's I'm having a hard time thinking about this.
To be fair, you say they didn't have the literature. That's because they made the literature, I believe.
Yeah, I know. No, but exactly. Like, but you know, it's one thing to believe enough in something and to obviously be very knowledgeable about the situation, to be able to write it and to actually do it, and for us just to be inspired by it. I mean, you know, we were. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I know you were, Pablo, but we were kind of bathed into these kind of principles, and we could almost like not only cherry pick the one that seemed interesting, but actually have the experience of saying, yeah, this worked for 20 years and now this has evolved into this and this and that. And so we have such an easy time to do this kind of stuff. Anyway,
Now,
Martin, if you're hearing us.
now on the other side, there's nothing really new coming in the IT industry. A lot has already been said in the previous century, but we are really bad at knowing our history.
But you say
That's
you
interesting.
say, Thierry, that nothing really new is coming on, which I tend to agree on, at least. Like technology-wise, a lot of new things are coming up all the time. Principle-wise, less. But
Yeah, but we repeat the same mistakes. With every new technology, we repeat the same mistakes.
exactly, that was what I was gonna say, is that what was invented, discovered, whatever you want to call it, last century is still not widely applied. So new things cannot come out because we haven't applied the quote unquote old things, right? Because you need to do that to build on top of. And if most companies are not deploying every X time, if most companies are not doing Y thing, then not enough people, the pool of people that are doing new things is not high enough for it to develop new things, right?
Yeah.
That's depressing. Thanks, Pablo. No, but yeah, I really do agree with you. Like, yeah, we're not really pushing the envelope as you know, as an ecosystem. But
I've been skirting about around this next question for what has been for now the whole episode, but we've talked about efficiency and optimization and bottlenecks, but what should we optimize for? Because my feeling is that today we optimize for lines of code. Is that also your feeling? And what should we optimize for? Is it line of code? Is it something else?
I don't know. Is this still a thing, lines of code?
I say it in the sense that we optimize amount of code produced.
Well, I would say there's a lot of focus on output,
Yes, that I think that's what I meant.
regardless of what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And should we optimize for output?
No. We should optimize for outcomes.
oh,
I think Stan is taking note of that quote. As soon as
yeah, no, like I was no, I was thinking that you just got like a really awesome quote for the episode. I mean, this is no, but this is fantastic in 3 words.
Yeah.
That's I cannot agree more with that. I I noted something about the what to optimize for, which was more like a early stage and kind of summing up what I've shared. I think we need to optimize a bit more for the flow of being able to build, fix, refactor, or whatever. I mean, essentially, and I know it's it's a word that means a lot, but optimizing for agility in the sense of agility, not in the sense of agile methodologies. And being able to react to what's coming, to a change in strategy or this kind of stuff. I think it really means a lot, and it plays into the outcomes versus output as well. And once again, I think most of my thinking process around what makes a team efficient, a software engineering team efficient, is product knowledge, and that comes down to that. The team needs to understand. The team needs to own essentially what they're going to build. I've shared at a small talk. Actually, Thierry, during this talk, I sent you a message on LinkedIn to use one of your quotes that I actually used at this talk because you gave me permission to. It was at Odoo, and I was talking about the fact that I have no issues whatsoever with a company asking me to build a marketing feature, as long as it's understood that this feature, it's like a moonshot or whatever. So, for example, like, we want AI in the tool. What for? Because it's sell. Sure, why not? But as long as it's communicated clearly to the team as well. And to differentiate that against, we're building this and it's going to be a foundational, feature. It's going to be core of the company, core of the mission, and so on. And I think if you're clear enough with the team and you trust the team enough to be able to have this kind of conversation first, and secondly, embark them into the thinking process around, then you have something super efficient, because they're going to know when to spend time and to actually build, architecture or something, and you're going to know when to just have something, an MVP that's going to be scrappy enough just to make it work, because, it's going to be a moonshot. So 99% chance it's not going to work out. And for me, it always comes down to that.
Yeah, I really like what you said about the team owns the product, and this is what makes the difference. And yes, most of the good ideas we have are actually wrong.
But that's another quote right there.
Like 90% of the good ideas are wrong. This has been measured by Microsoft.
Oh.
But to know that, you need to test
Yeah.
the so-called good ideas. And therefore, you need fast feedback. And so you need to be able to release quickly. And so you need flow and you need throughput just to be able to test ideas. And then finding, oh, well, actually, it was a bad idea. So let's try another one.
I see. I'm dying to turn the episode on its head, because there is a question I'm burning to ask both of you that has no bearing whatsoever on team, or at least a tangential one. What is an efficient engineer? Because from what you're saying, the team should not, like, the members of the team should not be only quote unquote coders, right? What is an efficient engineer? And for a team to be efficient, should all engineers be efficient in them?
Do you have another?
Yeah, this might be a teaser for a future episode, but if you have a quick answer on that.
I think what makes, and I mean, it goes beyond just engineers. It's just across the entire organization. I think one of the quality we've always looked for, was curiosity. And that's what led Sanjeev to be involved with, the business people. That's what led him to understand a bit better what was coming out and what we actually wanted to do within the company. And it made him just a better engineer altogether. And when we had on the other side, salespeople coming to us and saying, okay, yeah, what's the struggle and what you guys are working on and so on, it made them better, as well as being able to understand what we were actually building and what were the limitations and this kind of stuff.
Yes. Well, the whole idea of the efficient engineer is actually unimportant. It's the efficient team. That's what is important. Also, there has been a time where we were speaking about the 10x engineer. which is a fallacy. Laurent Bossavit has debunked this idea in his book, The Leprechauns of Software Engineering. It's the only thing that is important is the team. That's the thing. It's the mixture of skills and people that are present in the team that makes the team efficient, and especially the different backgrounds of people.
Yeah, it's that those different backgrounds in the service of a common idea, right? That end up giving you
because they will question ideas differently. Especially diversity is important in the teams.
I see. I'm really glad that you both managed to answer this question and that I did not have to cut you in the middle of discussing it to say we might make another episode on this. Although I might try to convince both of you to come back for an episode on that subject. But we're getting close to the allotted time for the episode, and I like to end the episodes asking the guests, what would someone that is starting to get interested in team efficiency and these different subjects that we have been discussing, where should they start, or which tips would you give a person? I guess I should wish them good luck seeing your reaction, because the body of work must be quite big.
Oh, yeah, so now I will speak for myself. So I'm very influenced by the whole lean thinking. So I would advise to go read literature on lean. So what the Poppendieks have written, they have written 5 books. So the whole lean software engineering. The Goal from Eliyahu Goldratt, very good one. If you don't like to read books, the graphic novel is really good. I also liked Rolling Rocks Downhill, which is another book on theory of constraints, but specifically for software engineering, which is really great. And I forgot the name of the author, but he's a really nice person. He's from New Zealand. Yeah, and now recently I have been reading This is Lean. This is really great. This book is great.
Okay.
It's written by Swedish people, and it's really it's well, they managed to summarize the essence.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. What about you, Stan?
Oh, I thought you were going to forget about me.
Never.
No. I'm I'm not super well versed into literature around this topic. My strategy most of the time is just to talk to as much people as I can around topics I like. I've heard great things about a podcast from a guy who invites a senior and a junior around a topic, whatever. No, but seriously though, it's these moments. That's what I feed from as well. And here obviously we have a relationship. So I was invited, and I was the junior in the episode. But seriously, I've been joining Slack workspaces, being in touch with amazing people from the Brussels ecosystem as well, from within and outside my organizations. I mean, it's easy to say, and it was really harder for me because it's not my kind of personality. I'm not super outgoing as a person, but yeah, getting out there and talking to people on LinkedIn, for example, where I met Thierry. No, but people are not gonna bite most of the time, and most of the time they're actually gonna be extremely positive, especially in our domain, I believe. So yeah, like yeah, that would be my advice. Like
If I
fight the nerd in you and get out there. I know I did, and I'm still fighting to this day.
Well, to be honest, I'm also not super outgoing. So. And actually, there are quite a lot of not so much outgoing people in our industry.
Yeah.
but so if I had to summarize both your answers in a sentence, it would be read books and talk to people, right? Basically, to get started on learning any subject.
That's a good synthesis.
I learned a lot from reading, and then talking to people, conferences helped me a lot. Well, I've met great people at conferences.
Okay, I think with that we can finish the episode, which was so interesting. Thank you both of you so much. It was really a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Pablo, for prepping this and inviting me to get to meet Thierry. That was great.